Hello, greetings fellow stationeers, and welcome back to Mimas with me, 54 Bear, where we are continuing to mess things up. The current screw up is I had once again allowed these tanks to get too cold, which means that the Stirling is hardly generating any power. So 823 Kelvin, that's what, 550 or something Celsius, it does not appear to be enough. And yeah, so things not going super swimmingly. I'm currently cooling down the yellow tank, even though it's the hotter one, because it did get to overpressure and I needed to generate some heat. So I turned the H2 combustor back on and almost immediately ran out of fuel. So I had to do a quick emergency mining run and top up the oxygen and volatiles. Also added a little bit of minor funkiness because I mined so much oxide that I was throwing it into the crusher as fast as I could, and it started erroring out. According to the Atmo analyzer, its internal pressure reached about 120 megapascals. The thing that slows this down, as opposed to the volatile one goes straight into the tank. This one goes into a filtration. So there's a bit of a bottleneck there. So I added this little doohickey on top just to give the pipes some extra volume. And, that seems to work out okay. Although, to be honest, it only became a problem towards the tail end of filling it up, so I don't know how well that solution will run in the future. Now, previously, I had put this temporary, well, not temporary, but this emergency pipe in so that I could run the Stirling off of the brown waste tank over there. That also was empty. I had basically filtered out everything, drained the rest, and forgot to do anything about it. So I have been throwing in some volatiles and oxide, building up fairly decent temperatures, and I'm going to do a little bit more to get the pressure up. So I'm going to want half of this, 12 of those, and it's not melting. Okay, 25 of those, give it a click, and I'll just leave this to drain it all out, although I can probably lower it down to 50 now. Yeah, this got right up into the red. It was a little nerve-wracking, but it did not explode, which makes me wonder if my Stationeers game is corrupt. Anyway, I have been busy. I have done lots of things, and I did not record them. I just thought, okay, I'll try it out, and it ended up being such a convoluted mess that I decided to forego filming a build and just show you the finished result. So we have our ore distribution system, and it all works. I have tweaked things slightly. I've added a reject chute because I didn't want to end up with stuff getting clogged up in this top line of conveyors here, the one with the glass ones in. That is, I'm calling it the reject chutes. Anything that goes through all of the sorters and isn't picked out comes back through here. In an ideal world, there shouldn't be anything because I have finally bitten the bullet and replaced all of the sorters with logic sorters. And I worked up the courage to do this after watching a video on YouTube by Saint Mick of the MIPS, otherwise known as Cows Are Evil, and he demonstrated how it can be done. So I took his idea and basically refined it a little to my suiting, and it now works the way I wanted it to. Had a bit of a kludge here. Initially, this was just a regular sorter, and it was just sorting out ingots. If it detected an ingot, it threw it out the side, and that was okay. But I had other issues as well. When you are degassing stuff, if the temperature drops below the degassing point whilst it's smelting, it can take, you throw in 50 iron, you may get 37 out that has been degassed and 17 out that has not been degassed. So you put one lot of 50 in, you get two smaller lumps out. And because they weren't ingots, they were going into the chute distribution system. And I'm lazy. I expect everything here that I pick up to be 50. And occasionally you pick it up and it's only like 42 or 7 or something, and you just don't notice. You throw it in the furnace and it messes up your mixture. You end up with reagent mix. This is just some I threw together to test out the process. So in that event, what was happening with the old system was it was an ore, or it wasn't an ingot, so it went through the first sorter, went into this batch, it didn't satisfy the conditions of any of them, and it just stayed in this loop. And right now, even now, I don't have a way of taking things out of that loop short of breaking it open. So I put in this valve so I could stop it and then take it out in a controlled manner. I may yet do something else. I'm not really certain, probably involving a digital flip-flop or something. But anyway, so I wanted to modify the sorting so that it, as well as spitting out ingots, it would spit out anything that was less than 50, because then that would tell me that, okay, it's only partially degassed. Because there's no way of knowing programmatically where it ran out of gas. It may be 1 degassed and 49 not, or the other way around. You could do it by the order in which it selects them, but to be honest, that was just more trouble than it was worth. My initial thought on it was just, don't worry about it. The amount of gas that I'll be dealing with shouldn't be that important. But then I thought, well, I have the ability, or, now I have the ability to not put anything in there that isn't already 50. So I didn't need the stackers. So I have 10 stackers sitting in a pile somewhere, which I will never use. Now there is another sorter on top of this. I mean, all of the sorters are of the logical variety, because I spent an inordinate amount of time. This I did record, but to be honest, I'm not going to upload it because I'm just swearing into the microphone a lot. I couldn't get it to satisfy the 3 conditions that I wanted this first filtering thing to have. And I can show you what I mean by examining the code. I'll put the game on pause because I don't know how long I'll be here. So this is obviously MIPS code, but it is unlike anything else in as much that it isn't running through a loop. So it runs once and loads all the information into the sorters, and you don't have to deal with anything else. So I decided to go pinless because there is a way of doing it, and some part of me really does not like setting pins, and if I don't have to, then I'm quite happy to avoid it. So I'm using a couple of variables. You don't have to do this. You could just use R0 everywhere where you see a command variable name. They get reused, and that's okay. You do need to have a separate one for the sorter ID, or use a separate variable. So I could, every place where command string appears in the program, or script, whatever you want to call it, I could replace that with R0. I could likewise replace sorter ID with R1, and the whole thing would work fine. But I just thought it makes life a little easier to understand if where you're using a variable, it has a name that it kind of means something. That's why we have these constants up here. And this is just my old, going back to when I used to do this kind of stuff for a living. Constants, I always make capital. It's just something that I do. You don't have to. So I've defined a few of them for the conditions that I'm going to be using. Everywhere in the code down below where you see hash equals, you could replace that with the number 1 and it would work just fine. But I do it this way so that it's easier. Likewise with the names of the ingots or the hashes of the ingots. I define a constant, I give it a value of the hash of that item, and we're okay. These also are constants. I suppose they should be down here to keep them all together, and of course I'm defining the sorters. This is the hash of the logical sorters. So first thing it does is it sets all of them to mode 1, which is any. That's kind of important. Set up the variables. Then we get into the funky stuff. We're loading from the loading a batch name, sorter ID, or into sorter ID. From the collection of sorters, I'm looking at the sorter filter, and from that I want the reference ID. And of course, because we're using a batch method, we have to give it an average, a maximum, minimum, or something. I just always use average. Then what we're doing here is we are loading into command string reagent mix. That's the constant. That is this here. That's the hash value of reagent. And immediately shifting it 8 bits to the left. To that, I'm then adding, add into command string the value of command string plus the other constant hash equals, which is really, it's just a 1. And then I'm putting that whole thing into the sorter ID I'd previously got at position 0. That is actually the first line in the array or in the memory stack, or however you want to think of it. And I'm loading in the command string that I built up just here. As with a lot of things with computers, the first number it ever thinks of in a counting sequence is always 0. So that is dealing with reagents. Next I'm dealing with ingots. And again, I'm doing the same thing as I did here, although this time I'm reinitializing it from scratch. I don't think you have to do that. I could, I think, do it this way and just comment out that line and it should work fine. So again, I'm putting in the ingot class, which is in this case number 3, and there's no documentation on this. I had to do a little bit of jiggery-pokery to find out what the class was. And just as a word of warning, if you do this yourself, or if you use the configuration tablet on well, I'll show you what I mean. Probably easier to demonstrate it. Right, so I have here an unpowered logic sorter. Let's see if I put in some gold.
Hunger caution.
And fire up the oh, of course, no, this this won't show it. This is only showing the values of the actual sorter. You have to set up a slot reader and either interrogate that directly by looking at it or put it up on a display or something. So yeah, the ORs will show you either, sorry, not either. Oh, English, it's hard, isn't it? When you look at the values of that get displayed when you use a slot reader, it will show you that there is a class and there is a sorting class. They are different values. I don't know what class is used for. I don't believe it is used within the logic sorter system. It's probably something internal to the way the game works. So when I'm referring to class, it's the sorting class, and the sorting class for ingots is 3. And there's a lot of other things in sorting class 3 as well, so you have to be a little bit careful with this. Anyway, so that 3 is loaded into the command string and shifted 8 bits to the left. I then give it the word equals. Again, there's no documentation on this, thanks to Mick's video over at Counsel Evil. He was able to provide a pointer, and you try a few things and eventually get it to work. Anyway, so equals or not equals, more, well, I guess there's a greater than or a less than, I don't know, but within the confines of sorting this stuff, equals or not equals is really the only values you'd actually be using. Shifts that 8 bits to the left, and then it adds in the class compare instruction. This last thing that it adds is actually going to be at the end of the line, and it's the instruction that tells it what to do. So in that case, it's just a number 3. And then it puts this, actually, I could change that. I could put it into instruction number 1, but yeah, I was dealing with this third item, which is actually now on a separate sorter that deals just with quantity, and this took me quite a while to figure out. It was a stupid mistake. The code is fine. Code worked perfectly. The problem was, when I was doing the testing, I was testing it with an ingot that was not equal to 50. And when I put it into production, it was a major disappointment to me when I found out that all of my ingots were being spat out as well. That's because they were also 50. Now, remember, I mentioned at the beginning, the sorter mode is set to any. The modes are none, any, or all. And to be honest, I can't figure out a situation where I would want to use anything other than mode 1. Now, it might just be a limit of my imagination, but anyway. So the situation was, we had one sorter that had 3 conditions. The 3 conditions were, is it a reagent? If it is, kick it out. Is it an ingot? If it is, kick it out. And then, is the size of the unit not 50? Kick it out. Now, if it is 50, it satisfies this condition and therefore is sorted. I was testing it with ingot sizes that were, I think, 200. And so obviously it was failing this anyway, and it was being spat out, not because it was an ingot, but because its quantity wasn't 50, and I didn't understand that. And I couldn't figure out, and still can't figure out, a logical way of dealing with these 3 things on a single logic sorter. It's possible that I am just being dumb, but yeah, the other option I had was to give it a whole bunch of things to say, you know, is it this, is it this, is it this, is it this, and so on. And then if it's not, then kick it out. Because then, irrespective of the size, if it's not one of these ors, it would get booted. But that seemed to be a little bit of a kludge, and I wanted to be a little bit more elegant, and largely failed. But anyway, once I figured out that the issue was, you know, the code worked, it was just, it was being countermanded by this other stuff, then I realized that, okay, it has to go on its own sorter, which it is. Then we get into the actual sorting for all of the ors. So you don't have to specify them in any order. It's just for each sorter that you're going to be addressing, you have to get its sorter ID. That's because the put D command requires that. If I could eliminate this line, and then I could run up to each sorter with the configuration tablet, find out its reference ID number, that's this one here, write it down, come back, and then hard-code it in there. The problem with that is if you have to rebuild anything, then the reference ID changes, so you have to go and refresh that. So this way, I could go in and remove the iron sorter, put it back in. It will have a different reference ID, but because I'm obtaining the reference ID, then it will work fine. So yeah, we're building the command string. There's only two elements to it. The fact that I want iron, shift it 8 places to the left. Then I want to get the hash equals command, which is 2 in this case. And anything that is iron gets filtered out. And again, for each of the or specific ones, we're only dealing with one line, so it always goes into instruction 0. You could put it in a different number, but I really don't see the point. And that's all it does. And you see there's no loop in it. It doesn't rerun again. I haven't tested it to destruction yet. I probably will. But once you put the code in, you export it, and at that point all the sorters are programmed. You can turn this off, you can turn this off, you can dismantle it, whatever, it will continue to run fine. In that respect, it's kind of similar to the way the old sorters worked. So that's where we are. Of course, there was a chance to make some of the chutes a little silly, so I wasn't about to pass that up. Ideally, I would like to have laid this out a little differently. I think putting it in one line was maybe a mistake. Maybe I should have looped it round or something to make the design somewhat funkier, but yeah, it works. I will upload that bit of code to the workshop, but I'm not going to do so yet. I want to run it for a while and see if I have overlooked anything else. The way it is at the moment, I've got 10 sorters for the yaws plus 2 up there, so you need a total of 12 sorters, which is, maybe a little bit too much. I would be grateful if anyone knows of a way I could combine these two things, whereby an ingot of 50 can get spat out with the conditions I've given it, or suggestions for improvement, always appreciated. I added a switch up here. This just controls the state of this lever, and of course it won't work because nothing's turned on. So at the moment it's open, it's closed, it's open. I mean, I should probably put it down here, but I was thinking that I was going to do some more chute shenanigans with that, so I decided to leave that area clear for the moment. It's a simple thing. You can pick it up and drop it off somewhere else fairly quickly. I've done a lot of mining. I have, these 5 backpacks, I think one's empty and the others are all full. All right, that's got hardly anything in it. Oh, that one's empty. Right, so I've got a ton of iron that needs to go through, and I could stand here and just roll them in.
Hydration critical.
But I'm not going to do that just yet, because I think it would be fun to come up with some kind of chute arrangement. But it's something that would need to be throttled, i.e. you wouldn't want it spitting out at its natural rate. You'd want to have a, 3-5 second delay, something like that, between each yaw being spat out. And that way I can still have it go into this input chute, just get it rolled across the floor or something. Just haven't quite figured out a good design for that. Anyway, so that's where we are. Power has once again been an issue, although I am out of the base and with the override on for the walkabout mode. And okay, we're generating 15 kilowatts. That must mean that the gas fuel generator is running as well as the Stirling. I did modify the code. I switched it around so that the Stirling would be the primary source, because, as I said, I was running out of power. I've also rejigged the exhaust for the Stirling. For the gas fuel generator. That now goes directly into the red pipe network. So through the red pipe network, it will always be connected to the same tank that the H2 combustor outputs to. I don't know whether that's a good idea or not, because when it runs, its exhaust is a lot colder than the combustor. I haven't done a detailed test of it to actually do any measurements, but it does appear to be significantly lower. Thinking of such things, talking about high temperatures and pressures, we should see how this is going. Okay, so I can afford to throw some more in there actually. So I think we will do that.
Hunger critical.
Yeah. Right, so let's do, nope, not that. This one. Half of that. And of course this will have to be quick before it all gets sucked out. Okay, I'll save a bit of power and drag it in a bit slower. The amount of power these things use is proportional to, it is directly proportional to how fast it is, I think, or how fast you set it. So when there's no rush, don't have it run in full bore. Anyway, so I have 30 megapascals of fairly hot gas in there now. So what I can do is come over here, shut this off, and shut that on, and turn that on. So that will now give me much hotter gas for the Stirling to chew on. And so now it's jumped up to 1600 Kelvin. So the Stirling should be running at much better efficiency. It was kind of disappointing. 300 degree difference between the input and the ambient temperature. I would have expected somewhat more than like 5% of its power output. Its output curve seems a little bit disproportional, but that may be because I insist on having it piped up with the output and the input connected, because I've never seen any other way I've tried plumbing them up. I've never noticed anything that was more efficient than that. So, but yeah, the cooling system seems to be working. I've added a little bit more pressure. I think I set it now to 5. It was at 4. It could, maybe even do with a little bit more, because when both of these things are running, it does warm up in there fairly quickly. And where are those whooshes coming from? Oh, that'll be from the cooling thing. I added another filtration. This is to pull out pollutants and CO2 via these two valves, whichever one I'm working on. Purely because I have so much CO2, I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I got 40 megapascals right now. At this point, I should just be throwing it away because it's really not doing me any good. Plus, I waste a lot of time cooling it down to reasonable temperatures. Nitrogen, I'm kind of okay for. I would like a little more. Oxygen and volatiles, I still have to go out on occasional mining to get the fuel up. So, yeah, I think we're okay for a while. And just as a refresher, I had this, I don't even know what you call it, pile of spaghetti piping. This filtration unit here is pulling CO2 and oxygen out of the pink tank and putting it directly into the red pipe network. That's because I was having a lot of oxygen buildup in here. It was a temporary thing, but I'll keep it there just because it makes the piping look funky. I'm leaving the nitrous oxide in there so that I can, if needs be, boost up the pressure or the temperature by feeding in a little bit of nitrogen. This red pipe connects all the way over there to the volatiles tank. I think I said hydrogen again. I keep doing that. Okay, and I'm also pulling oxygen and volatiles out of the cold tank and putting them into the hot tank. So again, I've got stuff in there that can react with volatiles to boost up the temperature and pressure should that be needed. I haven't actually touched any of these controls for a long while. It just stays at this temperature. And because I am pre-smelting all the ores, I throw something in there, it doesn't affect the temperature at all. So let's do some gold. I think I'm a little short on gold, so you just throw that in and it spits it out. These top two consoles, that's the temperature and pressure inside the furnace. It doesn't move. I'm sure Rocketworks will change it at some point, but yeah, it's not a huge issue. All right, I will throw some more in here, I think. So I want a quarter. No, not. There we go. 12 of those. $25 of those. And that'll just give me a little bit more pressure in there. Actually keep that running. Okay, so my character is breathing heavy, so I will go inside and do the eaty drinky thing. So anyway, a bit of a shortish video. For those that are interested, this is the device configuration cartridge. You point it at sorter, go down to the bottom, and you'll see the last but one item is the reference ID. That's the 6-digit number that you would need if you are going to hard code the sorters to do stuff that you want. I prefer the dynamic way because, as I said, you can remove a sorter, shift it to a different location. As long as you give it the same name, spelt exactly the same way, same spaces, same punctuation, same capitalization, it has to be identical, then the code as written will find it again. The only issue is you would need to pop the chip, or turn the housing on, pop the chip out, put it back in, and then that rewrites everything as far as I can tell. Anyway, that's really it for today. A bit of a shortish episode. Sorry there was no building. Next time we'll be doing some fun and games with chutes to see if we can find a way of automating or semi-automating or managing the flow of undegassed ores into the degassing furnace. Hopefully the sorting system will be able to keep up with it. We will find out next time. So, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. 54 Bear out.